Hey everyone, David Leo here. Not too long ago, I made a video predicting 4 jobs that we could see in Final Fantasy XIV's future. In that same video, I also said that we received 9 new jobs across from Heaven's Ward to Endwalker. Well, here I am and I want to make 5 more predictions. These 5 predictions will take heavy inspiration from Final Fantasy Tactics, since the Tactics series has the most playable jobs in the entire franchise. Also, I think that Yoshi P and the rest of the development team should play around the idea of weapons having a second class, similar to the Arcanist branching out into Summoner or Scholar. And finally, I want to quickly recap my 4 predictions from the previous video. Berserker, Gambler, Green Mage, and Mystic Knight. Now, I can begin the video. One of the most powerful jobs in the original Final Fantasy Tactics is the arithmetician. Although I should specify that it was a powerful secondary job, not as a main job. What made arithmetician so useful was their ability to cast spells at the cost of 0 mana, and for those spells to target units regardless of location. Yes, your healing and damage spells were map-wide. Distance and line of sight were not a factor. The only thing holding back the arithmetician was the player's ability to understand math. But even then, that's not a large hurdle to overcome. There is no doubt that if reintroduced in Final Fantasy XIV, the arithmetician would receive a rework similar to the Sage. However, there are 2 abilities that I think the job should keep: Cup of Life and Soulbind. Cup of Life allows access of healing to be distributed to other party members. For example, if you have a party member who has 40 out of 100 HP, and you cast a healing spell for 50, that extra 20 HP would be sent to another party member. Soulbind is essentially a damage mitigation ability. Your enemy attacks you for 100 damage, but Soulbind will make it so that you take 60 and the other 40 is sent back to the attacker. So far it seems like the arithmetician would be a candidate for a DPS support class, similar to the Dancer, or maybe even just a pure healer. Dual Gunner appears in War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. If included in Final Fantasy XIV, it could be a off-branch of the Machinist class. But how does it differ from the Gunslinger we already have? The Machinist takes inspiration from Edgar from Final Fantasy VI, giving the Machinist a more engineer-y kind of feel. So I would want Dual Gunner to be less about the machines and more about the guns, if that makes any sense. Dual Gunner is about doing multiple rapid attacks to a single target, or performing a single instance of AoE damage. But is that it? No. At least for inspiration. Let's take a quick look at the Fusilier from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance 2. In this entry, Fusilier has ice bullets, fire bullets, lightning bullets, and a buff to increase their hit rate. Essentially, it's a black mage with a gun. So my ideal version of the Dual Gunner would include multiple single target attacks, single AoE attacks, and elemental bullets. But there is one minor problem. The Dual Gunner name seems a bit weird to say out loud. I don't think an NPC would refer to themselves as a Dual Gunner. We could instead rename it to Fusilier, or we can name it after the Corsair job in Final Fantasy XI. I'm leaning towards the Corsair, because just like Ruin Fencer, I don't understand why this job never made a return. Also, this last point's irrelevant, but I do want to say that I am a sucker for the dual-wielding pistol aesthetic. I have a wacky idea. What if the Arcanist had a third branch? Yeah, I figured. Hear me out for a moment. The Summoner summons primals. The Scholar summons fairies. The Mystic could summon yokai. The Mystic in Final Fantasy Tactics is a support unit primarily casting buffs and debuffs. However, in my rendition of the Mystic, I don't see how summoning an Oni, an Onryo, or a Nureona could provide support, unless you consider doing raw damage as supportive. So I propose for this yokai summoning Mystic to be a DPS caster. If there is anything I want the Mystic to keep from its Tactics counterpart, it would be Mana Font and Harmony. Harmony is simple. It removes the opponent's stat buffs. Nothing else. Mana Font is an interesting one. You regain mana for every step you take. A combination of regaining mana both over time and while running around without needing to use your lucid dreaming sounds like something caster mains would enjoy. No? Just me? Okay. I think I'm gonna make a separate video on this since there's a long list of Japanese spirits and folklore to take inspiration. Who knows, maybe I'll find a reason why I should be a healer instead. This is gonna be an interesting one. Nightblade was a job exclusive to an enemy in Final Fantasy Tactics. The job only became playable in War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, with the introduction of characters Elsiriel and Velric. In Tactics, the Nightblade was all about doing damage, breaking your gear, and lowering your stats. In War of the Visions, Elsiriel and Velric play like a Dark Knight, but without the darkness. Or another way of putting it is, they play as if you replace the warrior's axe with a great sword. Temporary damage buff, temporary increase in max HP, damage resistance. Yeah, I'm beginning to realize this was maybe not a good choice. By Final Fantasy XIV standards, the Nightblade seems to be very underwhelming. But I'm sure something creative can be done, right? Right? How many of you have seen a paladin glamour and they don't have the shield? In fact, Emmerich fights with a sword but no shield. Sure, the Sword Saint would fulfill the one-sword warrior aesthetic, but that's not the only reason why we could see this job enter Final Fantasy XIV. We have already seen jobs based on single characters from Final Fantasy Tactics. Another character from the same game is Auron, who held the Astrologer job, renamed Astrologian for Final Fantasy XIV. The Sword Saint would be based on the character Orlandu from Final Fantasy Tactics. What made Orlandu and his Sword Saint job stand out was his role as a melee fighter with a plethora of options for range attacks, with some of them even costing 0 mana. Also, he just did a lot of damage. On a surface level, Sword Saint could be compared to the Paladin, a melee fighter with caster abilities. Okay, so Sword Saint is just Paladin without the shield. Actually, probably not. Sword Saint in Japanese translates to Kensei, an honorary title in Japan given to swordsmen with outstanding prowess. Due to the Kensei being directly from the Japanese language, there is a possibility that Sword Saint could be renamed to Kensei and be a second branch to the samurai job. So am I suggesting the possibility of a caster samurai? Maybe. Just maybe. So let's recap all my predictions from both videos. Berserker, Gambler, Green Mage, Mystic Knight, Arithmetician, Dual Gunner renamed to Corsair, Mystic, Nightblade, and Sword Saint renamed Kensei. What are your predictions? Should Square Enix hire me? Leave your responses down below in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.